My story starts about 2.5 years ago when I was in Austria on a ski season. I was having the best time. I was partying so hard, like harder than I should. I thought I was Superwoman. I thought nothing could touch me. I thought I could drink. I thought I could stay up all night. I was sleeping like 3 hours a day, napping in the middle of the day. And I was getting used to this lifestyle, but I was wearing myself out completely. And towards the end of the season, things started. So right at the end of the season, probably about a month from the end, maybe 3 weeks, I can't really remember. Time kind of ceased to matter at the point that I got ill. I came home one day from a day skiing. I was in a really good mood, and suddenly I started to feel really terrible, like the worst kind of flu coming over me. And I'm not normally a sick person, so I didn't take this too seriously. I took some medicine and went to bed and tried to sleep it off. My roommate seemed to be ill with the same thing, so I thought, well, it's just a virus, it'll be fine. I didn't go to the doctor. I never really go to doctors about those sorts of things. I just kind of slept it out. So I slept it out for the next few days, and I felt a little bit better, but not amazing. And then when I got to the point where I was feeling well enough to like get up, go around, come out of quarantine, and start eating again, there was this big party that was going on. So I thought, okay, it's fine. I'll just like drink through the pain, through the flu, and try and see it out to the other side. So I had a couple of drinks, and that is all I remember of that night. The next morning I woke up, and the first thing I remember after those first 2 drinks is my boss shaking me awake in my bed. I have no memory. I just completely blacked out, which isn't unusual for me when I drank like a lot, which I was really into binge drinking at the time. But for just a couple of drinks and then for me not to remember anything, it was very unusual. And when I woke up, I felt very scared. I felt very anxious. But at the same time, I was used to hangovers, so I just thought, what an idiot. Okay, this is going to be the worst hangover day of my life. I just felt like I drank a whole bottle of vodka, and I felt like I was already drunk. Everything was moving, everything was spinning. I could hardly stand up straight. My boss took one look at me and sent me back downstairs to our bunks to get myself in order. And I felt a little bit more embarrassed than anything else. I didn't suspect anything out of the ordinary other than I had just got absolutely... So by the end of the day, I realised that there was something genuinely wrong with me. Not that anyone would believe me, because why would you believe a girl with a massive hangover? Yeah, you feel crap. Of course you feel crap. You're massively hungover. And that's probably what I would have said to someone else in that position. But I remember turning to someone at the end of the day, and normally the sort of point where you would reach the end of that hangover and you'd get that kind of feeling of feeling grounded, feeling like the worst of it's over. It didn't end. And returning to one of the guests and saying, something's wrong. I don't know, maybe someone put something in my drink or something. This isn't a normal hangover. I felt this awful kind of brain fog, and nothing looked right. You know when you're drunk and nothing looks right? That's what it felt like. It just felt like things were out of place. I saw someone else's video on YouTube which perfectly describes this. I can't remember his name, but I'll try and remember it if I make another video. And he said, you look at something, but it's like you can't look at everything at once. And I think, I have no idea. The only thing I can think of now is that my eyes could only focus on one thing at one time. And it was really starting to terrify me. This is where the anxiety and the fear started to set in, and I started having panic attacks. And everyone else, it seemed like I was overreacting. You're still ill, go back to bed, it'll be fine. But I think everybody has those feelings sometimes of they know when they have the flu and they know when something else is afoot in their body. I thought I was before I'd hit my head, I felt like a brain hemorrhage or something. I was desperate to find out what was wrong. So eventually, after another day or so in bed, I went to the doctor and he told me I had a chest infection after an x-ray. He said, of course you're going to feel dizzy, of course you're going to feel out of sorts if you have a chest infection. So I kind of accepted what he said and went back to bed. Later, I'm starting to genuinely doubt this doctor. Austrian medical care is fantastic, but he didn't really talk to me that much, and he didn't really comment on any of the other symptoms that I've been complaining about. So this is when I rang my parents and they said, okay, it's time to come home, like you have to come home. Crystal Ski were not interested in helping me get home at all. I needed certain things from the doctor to sign me off from work, and I couldn't even face talking to anyone else without crying, let alone going all the way to the doctor without any help to get these letters. So I paid for my own flight home, and then I left, went all the way to Munich airport from Kitzbühel on my own, absolutely terrified, on the verge of crying the whole time, and waited 10 hours for a flight back home. As soon as I saw my dad, I burst into tears, and I just feel like I knew at that point that it was the start of like a big battle with my health, and I didn't know how to even fathom going about it. I went to my local GP, and he kind of accurately diagnosed me with labyrinthitis. And I was happy with this diagnosis in a way because it said it would go away in a couple of weeks. And I guess that kind of gave me like a little oomph of kind of feeling of this will be over soon, this will be over soon, this will be over soon. But as those 2 weeks came and went, it didn't go, I started to get more kind of suspicious, started looking online. People had had this for years. People had been chronically ill, and it sounded terrible. I couldn't handle those sort of negative feelings from the internet, and I struggled with that for a long time. And I started to spiral mentally because the dizziness and the spaced outness and the weird feelings of vertigo weren't going away. Numerous doctor appointments, and I don't mean to criticise my GP, but he never sent me to a specialist. He never did anything to further his interest in labyrinthitis. After a month or so, he diagnosed me with post-viral fatigue because the feelings of vertigo that I was feeling, they weren't spinning. It was more of a dizzy, spaced out feeling, and he didn't associate that with an inner ear problem. He associated that with the virus that he suspected I had in the first place. So he diagnosed me with post-viral fatigue, which I learned from the internet is the waste paper bin of being diagnosed. So that made me even more depressed, and then eventually, sick of my crying, I'm sure, he put me on a high dose of antidepressants. Taken SSRIs, they'll know that the side effects can sometimes be even worse than what you're suffering. So I started suffering from those every day, and I just kind of spent the day dreading the moment that the pill would kick in and trying to time it at certain times of the day so I wouldn't feel so bad. So maybe time it, like taking it at midday so it would come into effect after dinner, or doing it so it would come into effect in the middle of the night so I'd be asleep so I wouldn't feel it. After 2 weeks, the lift, the antidepressants, kind of turned the kind of floatiness, the kind of disequilibrium that you feel with chronic labyrinthitis or inner ear issues or MDDS into a kind of like, I was just floating along on a cloud. Like, some people when they say they're floating along the cloud, they mean like mentally they're floating along on a cloud, like nothing can hurt them. But I physically felt like I was just floating along on a cloud. But it didn't bother me because I had altered the chemical receptors in my brain to not absorb any of the serotonin, so everything was wonderful all the time, even though I was floating around. It was almost funny to me that I was dizzy, which, I mean, was good because I wasn't hating myself so much that maybe I wanted to hurt myself, but at the same time it helped me ignore and put off any more visits to the doctor because my mental health was put so high. I don't really think I needed such a high dose of antidepressants, and it definitely made me put off any further investigation into my health issues. And if anything, the attitude of the health service made me feel as though I just had to sit and wait and should no longer worry about any of the strange feelings I was feeling. About a year later, I started feeling worse again after coming off the antidepressants, and I started to feel this swaying feeling, pendulum feeling all the time. It was like being on a boat, and I was quite upset by this, but I just put it down to labyrinthitis again, as the first doctor's diagnosis was. And that's exactly what they said. Just wait it out, it'll be fine. At this point I was sick of waiting and I was off the antidepressants, so my apathetic approach to health and my well-being had been taken away, which was a good thing, and I finally went to an ENT and he diagnosed me with mild disembarkment disorder, or syndrome. Sorry, it's a syndrome, it's not disorder, which has no cure. At this point I had been working full time for most of the 2 years. Like, I'd had some signed off time due to feeling dizzy and nauseous, and I had a couple of days off here and there, but like nothing equating to how much time, and probably a person who's not used to those feelings would be. There was not a day that I didn't go by where I didn't look up at the world and think something's wrong. There's not a day that went by that I still haven't had a day where I felt normal. It's 24/7. When I go to bed, like, I close my eyes, I feel that they're rocking, like I'm on a boat. And I wanted to do something crazy and big, so I went travelling. My boyfriend loves travelling, and I felt like I was holding him back with this issue. And so I went travelling for 3 months in the car, and now I'm back. And now I want to really attack this. I want to really get to the bottom of it. So I decided to make this YouTube video to hopefully find other people that are suffering with the same thing, find out what helped them. I'm really annoyed after doing research that no one ever in the medical profession has ever offered me any vestibular therapy. I feel like my eyesight is getting worse from it. I'm getting more headaches and I'm feeling more off balance. And I think this is probably to do with the fact that no one has ever treated or ever tried to make me any better. So I'm going back to the doctor, I'm going to try some new stuff, and if anyone has any advice, anything that's helped them, anything that you think will help me, or they want to contact me, inbox me, or anything, diet, exercise. I feel like yoga and exercise really helped me last year, if not physically, because I still felt the dizziness, but definitely like mentally. Like, exercise is just the best thing for a mental, like, to make you happier, maybe even better than pills. Not that I'm adverse to pills, because I still think the sertraline the first time around probably saved my life, because I was very down, because it was the first time I'd ever experienced something so chronic in my life. But now I think it's time to treat this a different way. So, I said before, any help, any tips, anything. I'm not a miserable person, I'm a happy person. I love chatting to people. It would be really nice to know some people that are suffering with the same thing as me, just because no one of my friends, I haven't really even told any of my friends about this. I just kind of get on with it. Because, I mean, what I've been reading a lot about with chronic illness is that a lot of people don't understand it. And I haven't got a lot of time to explain to people. I don't want to be treated differently. I want to have the same opportunities. I want to get back to my usual self. And sometimes that means struggling with small things a lot more than other people do. But I don't always tell them about it. So, yeah. Please feel free to contact me. I'll stop wobbling on now. And I know this video was a little bit morbid, the fact that I'm still suffering after 2.5 years, but I wanted to share my positivity in terms of I'm now ready to fight, and I'm sick of being apathetic and just trying to forget about this every single day. I'm going to try and tackle it every day instead.